Well, that came round quicker than I anticipated it to. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday evening and Simply Spooky. And this evening, we've got a really good show for you because we've got a guest here this evening that is, well, his history speaks for himself, really. We've got Mr. Jonathan Downs with us this evening. Good welcome, Jonathan.
Good evening. It's
I'd just
lovely.
like to say thank you ever so much for joining us this evening. Really appreciate it. And as a follower of yours for many years, I know exactly who you are. I'm sure everybody does. But if you could do us a favour, Jonathan, if you would please, and just give us a little bit of history or potted information as to who you are and your background, that'd be wonderful if you don't mind.
Yeah, I may look like a dodgy old hippie, but I'm yes, Vivian, do you find that amusing?
You're not a dodgy old hippie.
I am a dodgy old hippie. I've done my best to be a dodgy old hippie most of my life.
There's nothing wrong with being a dodgy old hippie.
No, I sat cross-legged in enough muddy fields listening to terrible music in order to be able to gain my badge as
I
being.
was going to say, not only you got the badge, but you got the right to wear it.
Oh yeah.
Can I just say,
oh dear,
Jonathan's a music man as well. He knows a lot about music, and he's listened to some great bands in his time as well. So he's more than just a dodgy old hippie. He's a wonderful bloke. He knows his stuff. He might laugh and joke, guys, in the chat. But if you want to know,
a laugh and joke. I'm totally serious all the time.
There you go.
He does. I would put you up there. I'm sorry if you don't like this phrase, but he is and has earned the right. He is an expert in his field, and this is one guy
in many fields.
Yeah, you should listen. He's got a lot to say.
Especially the ones I sat cross-legged in, listening to terrible music.
You're quite the Renaissance man, Jonathan. You've got string for every, or you got many strings to your bow, as it were.
Mm.
I've never actually. Oh, hello, Kat.
That's John.
Was that Jonathan?
Hi, John. And that's Archibald.
John, Archibald, John.
Yeah.
Oh, Archie and John have met before.
There you go.
I've never known what a Renaissance man actually is.
I think he's a master of everything.
Oh Christ, I'm not. I bluff about everything. I know a hell of a lot about a few subjects nobody else is interested in, and I know a little bit about a hell of a lot of things. But
there you go, Renaissance man.
Is that what it is?
It's a man that is somebody who's like a classical, or somebody that's how would you say? It's just somebody that's the finer things in life, has got an angle on the finer things in life and the intellectual side of life. There you go. So that's how I would describe you, Jonathan. Because as Viv said, I know for a fact that you are a rock and roll archaeologist, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amongst
so I was doing my homework, Jonathan.
Things. Shut up, Vivian.
Just.
If it doesn't mean it's going to be causing
trouble.
I'm being good. I'll promise.
You don't know how to be good, Vivian.
He knows me well.
So as I say, Jonathan's got many strings to his bow, but the one that we're really interested in, all of them really, but one particular one is he's a leading cryptozoologist. So for you guys that don't know what that is, I'm sure you do, but Jonathan, would you explain to them what the essence of a cryptozoologist is, please?
Yeah, it's simple. It comes from two Greek words, cryptos, hidden, zoology, the study of animals. So it's the study of mystery animals.
There you go.
And I've been doing this. It's been my hobby since I was about 8 years old. And it's been what I do for a living for the last 35 years. So.
Wow.
That's a long time.
Wow. So I know where I think I know where it started because I've been doing my homework. And I was it started, I believe, didn't it? It started with your mother used to go to the library and pick up books for different members of the family, some for your dad, specific ones for your younger sibling, and ones for you, which were animals and wildlife. And then she came home with a book on, was it Mythical Monsters or something? Or
Yeah, it was called Myth or Monster. And I've never been able to find the book since. I've been trying to find a copy for years. And I've looked on ABE books and I've looked on Amazon and everything. And I don't know what it is. I imagine that it was probably there were a hell of a lot of books in Hong Kong at the time, this was back in the 60s, which were knockoffs of legitimately published Western books. And I suspect it's a knockoff of On the Track of Unknown Animals by Bernard Heuvelmans, which was dumbed down a bit for kids. And I fell in love with this book. It totally and utterly blew me away. I'd always been interested in animals, and I'd always been an insufferable little know-it-all. And in Hong Kong, there were all sorts of fantastic creatures. And I mean, even when I was there were even tigers visited the colony. It was a British colony at the time. There were several species of monkey. There were tigers. There were civet cats. There were
wow.
all sorts of things, fantastic creatures. And I had read all I could read about all of them. And then when I found out that there were people who believed there were monsters in Loch Ness and giant apes walking around the Himalayas and all that stuff, it just totally blew me away. And I went to school the next morning, and the teacher did one of these. I don't know if they're still doing these days in school, but they probably do. So I'd say, "Okay, class, what are you going to do when you grow up?" And she was a terrifying old lady. Well, I thought she was an old lady. She was probably considerably younger than me, probably considerably younger than Vivian. And yes, it is possible to be even younger than Vivian. She's young and beautiful.
I love you too.
Thank you, my love. There were 4 of them. They've had a few hit records, and they're from Ireland.
Oh, really? So Rita says he's told you off, Viv.
I know.
Yes, I know that. I'm just playing to the gallery. The gallery being Rita at the moment.
Wild Bill says, "Hail all hippies." He was at Woodstock.
I was too young for Woodstock, but I was at the Trewargy Tree Fair in Cornwall in 1989, and I still can't remember large chunks of it.
You and most of the others that were there, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, I made the great mistake of eating a whole plate of hash fudge with the monkey, just as Nick Redfern's All Stars were coming up on stage, and I was completely off my tits. I'm not allowed to say this show. Sorry.
All right, of course you can. That's what you want.
Yeah, we do.
You give me that license. Anyway, I went to school that next morning, and the teacher said, "So, George, what are you going to be when you grow up?" And he said, "I'm going to be a soldier, miss." And Bill, what are you going to be when you grow up? "Oh, I'm going to be a doctor, miss." Jonathan, what are you going to be when you grow up? "I'm going to be a monster hunter, miss." And she looked absolutely furious at me. She had grey hair, a bit like my beard is now. And she looked down, and I can't do the voice because she came from Northern Ireland, and I cannot do that accent. But she looked down her glasses at me and said, "You are never going to amount to anything, boy, if you don't know your 9 times table." And the truth is, Mrs. Alexander, and I think you're probably long gone by now, but if you're not, I still don't know my 9 times table, and I've been for the last 40 years. So.
That is brilliant. I love it.
So you've been on some amazing journeys and expeditions and stuff in your life.
No, I've done some nice stuff.
You've done some nice stuff. What's the most memorable expedition that you've done? What's the most memorable thing that you've gone looking for?
Okay, I'm going to tell you a story. Can you please poll? How many people have got in the audience? Can we poll?
There's 5 at the minute.
Yeah. Is there any more?
Goes up and down quite a
Yeah.
lot.
This is a particularly gruesome and rather unpleasant story from Mexico. Will you please, in the audience, let me tell that story? Do you want me to tell you something sweet and nice with little pink?
Can we have Gory, please?
Yeah, just tell us the good one.
I'll vote for Gory.
I vote for Gory.
We like gruesome on here.
Okay, I was in a little village in the middle of the Puebla Desert in Mexico. It's since been, they had a bloody good big earthquake about 10 years ago, and I tried to find it on Google Earth and couldn't, so I imagine it's been flattened. I can speak a bit of Spanish because Spanish is a fairly easy language to speak, especially when you're trying to either buy cigarettes, beer, or get paid. So it's... Yes, Vivian?
You're terrible.
I don't smoke anymore. I don't drink anymore.
Oh, okay.
I don't get laid anymore either, but that's another... Yes, Vivian, do you want to say something? Do you want to share the rest of this?
No, you carry on. You carry
He's
on.
got your card marked, Viv.
Like I said,
Jonathan knows you.
I have discovered that one of the... As I've become a tedious old git, one of my great joys in life is laughing at Vivian. I do it with young, young Bigfoot Daniel, who's an absolute star, and I love that boy. But God, I get great pleasure out of it. And I get great pleasure out of laughing at Spooky Viv as well. So
We love each other very much, though. Tell everyone the truth.
I like the laughing at rather than with.
Yeah, I know. Right, come on, carry on. So you would
anyway,
speak Spanish.
I can't speak Spanish. Well, I can, but not very well.
Yeah.
But when I went to this village, there was something very weird about it. And the biggest weird thing about it is all the windows were nailed shut. And this is somewhere, I was there in February. In February, in the Mexican desert, it's bloody hot.
Mm.
It's as hot without the wind as it is outside at the moment in North Devon. It's very, very hot. The windows were all nailed shut. There was what I thought at first were onions, but then I realised garlic cloves on each window. And there were bloody great big white painted crosses on every wall. And I went to the headman of the village, who could speak no English at all. My Spanish was considerably better than his English, but the two of us actually spoke together by waving our arms around a lot in a mixture of Spanish and schoolboy French, because he'd learned French at school, I'd learned French at school. He was older than me, but about my age now. And his name was Don Pedro. And when I said to him, so Don Pedro, why are these crosses? Why are all the windows closed? And he looked at me, crossed himself and said, Señor, por protección de vampiros.
Mm.
And I thought, fucking hell, we're not in Kansas anymore. Or in my case, we're not in a little house in Exeter anymore. Because I was in the village, whether or not vampires have a objective existence or not, everybody in that village believed in them. And later that day, I met... What was that?
A motorbike or something, or a car?
Oh, that could have been me and motorbikes out here.
Later on that day, I met a female vet whose name I can't remember for the life of me, but this was 30 years ago. I met a female vet who had been employed by the International Monetary Fund, because if you don't mind a little bit of a history lesson here, it all does make sense in a minute, even though it might sound like I'm just digressing and talking random streams of disparate facts. But in 1995, I think it was, the then president of Mexico absconded with most of the the country's gold reserves and his 15-year-old mistress. And Mexico was functionally bankrupt, and the International Monetary Fund stepped in, and one of the things they instituted was, for the first time, they tried to modernize a lot of the Mexican economy. And this was in the few years before drugs had become the big thing in the Mexican economy, which happened about 10 years later. Luckily, when I was there, it was still relatively civilized. We got shook down a couple of times by the police, who were asking for permits which we didn't need to have to film and stuff. But it was a relatively civilized place. And also, which helped, one of the parts that we'd been going to was a part that was separatist from the Mexican government and was being ruled by the SZLN separatist guerrillas. I don't mean the monkeys. I mean the guys with dark glasses and big guns. And luckily, our interpreter, who was an absolute poppet, and again, I can't remember her name either. But our interpreter was the girlfriend of one of the leading guerrillas in the SNRN separatist movement, not Subcomandante Marcos, but one of his underlings. And so I found out an awful lot about what happened behind the news. And basically, the International Monetary Fund propped up Mexico, and they sorted out, they tried to modernize a lot of the Mexican industries, including farming. And for the first time, they brought in insurance for farmers to be able to take out insurance in case their cattle were stolen or killed. By cattle, I mean livestock, not just cattle. And in order to do this, one of the things they did was to pay for some specially qualified vets in the rural areas to be able to be there, so if somebody's cattle had been killed by jaguars, by pumas, by cattle rustlers or whatever, they'd come up and give a death certificate for the livestock so they could claim back on the insurance. And it so happened that this particular vet was a UFO buff. And is anybody familiar with a Mexican ufologist called Jaime Maussan? He was, actually, at the time. He's still around because I read something by him the other day. He was one of probably Mexico's leading UFO freak. And he introduced me to this vet. She took us. She'd been the first person on the ground when the first attack of the inverted commas vampires in these little villages started. She was the first person there, and she showed me an absolutely horrendous piece of footage. And this is where I wanted to make sure that, because this, I still have dreams about it. It's still absolutely fucking horrendous. That there was a sheep. Do you remember the famous piece of footage of the cow being the cow with BSE being
Yes.
pushed up the
Yes.
tail of the abattoir lorry. It was a sheep was staggering around like this, and it had a bloody great big hole in the side of its rib cage.
Mm.
And this vet put on a white cotton glove. Remember, cotton is very absorbent, made a fist, and put her fist into the side, into the hole in the side of the sheep's thorax, pulled it out, and there was no blood on it. The sheep was completely, it was still alive. Now, this is another weird thing. The heart wasn't beating. The heart is just a pump, and there was nothing to pump. The heart wasn't beating. There was no blood in it. The one thing I wanted to try and find out, but my Spanish wasn't good enough, was the liver, which is the most highly vasculated organ in the body, was that still intact?
Yeah.
Because when I cut up a chupacabra victim in Puerto Rico about 3 weeks before that, I found that the liver was actually missed. This was a chicken that had been killed one night, and I found that the liver was completely missing.
Oh.
Which is something, yeah, and wait for it, the diaphragm wasn't punctured. There was puncture marks in the neck, but no liver, and again, no blood. And how the bloody hell that happened, I don't know. But going back to Mexico, she then did the only thing that a decent human being could do. She got out a gun and shot it. She killed the sheep.
Yeah.
But when she had tested it for blood, there was not only no blood there, but against everything, it was still alive. It was reacting to light stimulus. It was reacting to touch. No blood. No heartbeat. And do you see now why I said that I wanted to ask for your permission?
Yeah.
That was all Dan's fault. He wanted to know what was my most
Well, yeah, it is my fault. It is. I was thinking, though,
That's amazing.
There was no, I mean, I'm not sure what Mexico was like at that time, you know, whether it was almost on the edge of being a third world country or whatever. But did they not have the scientific facilities to try and remove the body of those animals and test them? Or had they gone somewhere to be tested and then all of a sudden no disclosure on the information that returned?
I have no idea. I know what happened in Puerto Rico with chickens that had been killed.
Yes.
And they were taken away by the government's vet, their government equivalent of DEFRA, whatever that is in Puerto Rico. I used to know, I can't remember now. They were taken away to a government laboratory. I went and doorstepped the government laboratory and had guns pulled on me.
No forthcoming information then?
No, they told me to fuck off in Spanish.
Yeah.
So do you think they know what's going on? Do you think these governments probably know what's going on? Do you think they're as mystified as anybody else?
I think governments know more than they say they do, but not for sinister reasons, not because they're in cahoots with the Greys or part of a secret government. It's because governments work on a basis, every government works on a basis of creative inertia. If they can get away without doing anything, they will. Because if they admit something's there, it's like the Beast of Exmoor and stuff down here. They know perfectly well there are big cats here. But if they admit it, they're going to have to do something about it. And especially in a small country like England, can you imagine the complete load of cans of worms that's going to open? Boys can't be able to go out camping anymore. You couldn't have kids walking to school, even in rural areas, unprotected. The fact that no child has actually been attacked by these things in the last 40 years doesn't enter into it.
No.
The amount of things any government would have to do. It's just easier to say they don't exist. And I'm pretty sure that's what's happened with the chupacabra. I'm pretty sure I know what the chupacabra is, but that's another story. But I think the Mexican government have a fairly good idea what it is that's killing the livestock there and across parts of South America, but they don't know what the hell to do about it.
So, do they know if this particular whatever it is that's caused this problem? Do they know if this problem has jumped species from animal to human, or because I'm assuming if people are putting up things like crosses on their doors and nailed their windows shut and all that, I'm assuming that they've got reason to be fearful of.
Well, yeah, because they're losing their livelihood. Something which and I don't want to sound like I'm being all first world and
No,
modern, but they are superstitious and they are primitive. That's not a derogatory thing to say. Oh, hello, dog. I see another dog. But that's not superstitious. It's not being derogatory to them.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's reason they're like that. Maybe they know more than we do.
Yes, and they are. I spent some time in Miami where I learnt more than I probably intended to about. Oh, you're an absolute poppet, aren't you?
She's gorgeous.
She's a sweetie pie. I learned more about. Do you know what Santeria is?
Yes.
Yeah. I learned a lot about Santeria. I've got, and in Mexico, there, especially in the rural areas, and we were in the middle of fucking nowhere in the desert. I found that the people had a very primitive version of Roman Catholicism, which I am pretty sure had bits of the local pre-Christian religion shoved into it, in the same way Santeria is a mixture of voodoo, West African animist religions which were brought over by slaves, and Roman Catholicism. And bits of science fiction movies all shoved into it. And they don't have Santeria in Mexico, but they have a sort of primitive animal.
Right, okay.
And I'm sure, well, I know, they have these things coming. They think it is either God punishing them for doing something wrong and sending down angels of death to visit his wrath upon the people, or it is the devil or one of his minions coming up to attack the village for whatever reason. Devils do whatever they do. And I have a lot, I come from quite a religious family. I'm a Christian of sorts. I'm a Christian who's also got large chunks of pagan in him as well, but I don't actually see any real contradiction between the two. And but I come from a family of priests and vicars. My brother's a pastor in Germany, for example, and so I have a lot of sympathy with people from relatively primitive societies that are religiously based. And I believe that they think that the vampires are going to attack them if they go out at night. I think that they think that if they get bitten by a vampire, they'll probably become a vampire and infect the whole of their family. So I have no idea what it is that causes these attacks. I've investigated them in various places, and I suspect it's some sort of animal. I suspect not demonic at all.
Mm.
I'm not saying demons don't exist, but I know more about the subject than I want to, and I think that it is something natural. It's also something else which I'm sure Viv's heard me say before. I hate the term supernatural, and I hate the term paranormal. These things are not supernatural, they're not paranormal, they're perfectly natural.
Yeah,
They're
it's natural.
perfectly normal. They just run. They're just defined by laws of science we don't understand yet.
Yeah, I'm pretty much like that. Everything's natural. It's just not been disclosed yet, or we
We
haven't
haven't discovered it.
Jonathan, I read somewhere, oh God, this was a few years ago now, that they were finding human bodies that had a small hole, but all their innards missing, and there's no way it could come out of this small hole. And the story about the sheep has reminded me of that. Like when they put these people on the mortuary slab and did the post-mortems, they were baffled as to how the blood could be removed, and then the internal organs.
Were these the ones in Brazil?
Might have been. I know it was out somewhere, and they were attributed. The person that wrote the piece that I wrote was attributing it to an alien abduction and then being dumped in this place. But it sounds very similar to the sheep sort of scenario. But these people were already dead. But
my personal thoughts are: whenever you find a human body that's had really nasty things done to it, it's done by the most dangerous species on this planet.
Yeah.
Man.
Mm. Mm.
In fact, it's probably not true. The most dangerous species on the planet is probably a species of anaerobic amoeba, but that's probably responsible. That and mosquitoes are probably responsible for more deaths even than man. But no, the most dangerous species on the planet is us. And
Yeah.
I think if you find a body that's been tortured in nasty ways, it's been done by
We certainly do. Yeah, we do it for aggressiveness, don't we? As opposed to a mosquito just following out the natural pattern of its life.
Exactly. And we do it. And I believe the ones I've heard an explanation of these ones in Brazil that it was done by maybe not the official authorities, but to be able to scare the street children away, because the street children were begging for money from the tourists and bringing the resort down, to scare the fuck out of them by leaving a few tortured bodies.
Oh, that's awful. That's awful.
And I can tell you when that's happened before.
Mm-hmm.
It happened in the first Huk insurrection in the Philippines in 1890s-ish, when American soldiers hung up mutilated bodies of people that they had killed. Whether they'd been mutilated before or after death, I don't know, and would rather not know, in order to scare the living shit out of the locals who were rebelling against American rule. This happens. If something like this isn't happening in one of the wilder bits of Ukraine, I'd be surprised. This is what happens because we're not a nice species.
No, and I must admit that the things with places like Mexico, South America, places like that, deepest, darkest areas of the planet, I think that, or not necessarily, but I think that you've got drug cartels that run out there as well, haven't you? So they're not going to be opposed to doing all sorts of things, like the old smugglers that were here that used to put it about that there was a particular cave that was haunted to avoid people going there during the, because they could carry out the nefarious.
Hence the story of Sawney Bean, which never happened.
Yes.
And the same story of Sawney Bean then migrated down to a village 2 miles away from where I live.
Yeah.
and the story of the cannibals of Clovelly was circulated, it
Mm.
was because the local lord of the manor was smuggling tobacco and wanted to keep everyone away from his caves.
Yeah.
So he said that there was a tribe of cannibals living there. And
Actually, sorry, go on, Jonathan.
even when I first came here in 1969, my grandmother, who'd been a little girl in Clovelly, and she was born in 1890 something, she told me the story of the cannibals of Clovelly, totally and utterly believing every word of it.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting how these myths become, or folklore becomes a matter of fact, doesn't it, with people?
Totally, it's what I call the mythologization process.
Mm.
How something perfectly normal can become a myth.
Yeah.
Example, if somebody had published a paper in the Royal Zoological Society bulletin called on an incidence of naturalized tumours living on Exmoor, nobody would have batted an eyelid.
No.
But when it's in the Daily Star, the beast of Exmoor killed again,
Yeah.
it becomes a myth.
Yeah.
And because the beast of Exmoor is the same sort of way that people describe a rapist or a child
Yes.
molester,
Yeah.
or say a serial killer.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
some poor bloody cat that somebody with too much money and not enough sense had released out there 10 years before.
No, because big cat kills child doesn't really. It's not going to make the headlines, is it? It's not as nefarious sounding as the beast or the monster or the demon or what have you. You know, once you attribute that tag to it, it becomes mythological, doesn't it?
Right on, Dan. You've hit the nail on the head 100%. Completely right. Well, that's the way I see it, anyway.
Yeah, me too.
Mm.
I agree completely. Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, that vet that you were talking about, the one that you were saying that was into the ufology, did she kind of try and make connections between the UFOs and?
Oh, she thought they were aliens.
Right.
And she showed me some, I've never seen it again, but some fascinating footage, because we were just below the foothills of Popocatepetl.
Beautiful.
And she showed me footage. It was the first time I've ever seen an active volcano actually looking impressive. I went past Mount Etna when I was a little boy on a boat and saw a little bit of smoke wisping out the end, just looking like somebody was smoking a fag just inside
Wow.
the crater. But in Popocatepetl, there was clouds of smoke and sulfur everywhere, and the air smelt like sulfur. It was totally far out. And she showed me some video of a eruption, of a more major eruption than that, which had what seriously appeared to be saucer-shaped silver things flying out of the crater.
Wow.
I've seen that. I give it for what it is worth. I don't know what the hell they were.
That's intriguing,
By the way,
isn't it?
I don't know what that is there. There's a sort of grey thing on the corner of my camera, and I can't work out how to get rid of it. So I'm sorry.
It's all right.
That's all right.
That's okay.
But I've completely lost the plot. What was I talking about? Vivian, ask me a question.
I'll ask you a question. So, on Tuesday,
Yes, I will.
on our show on Tuesday, our subject was called hide behinds. Now, in the cryptid world, do you think that these cryptid creatures, whatever they may be, do you think that they are now so scared of the human race that they have to do exactly what we were talking about, hide behinds, like we don't want to show ourselves, we need a quiet life. You're just going to kill us
Well,
off.
most creatures are like that, whether
Yeah.
we know what they are or not.
Mm.
One of the things that does piss me off massively is people misuse the term cryptid.
Yeah.
Cryptids are species of animal, carbon-based flesh and blood animal, that have not yet been accepted, that are ethno-known. People living in the area know what they are, that people not living in the area and the scientific establishment do not, as a whole, accept their existence.
Right.
Most of the things that these days people talk about as cryptids aren't anything of the sort.
No.
They are well into the X-Files level of which interests me. It's fascinating. I mean, the thing I'm most famous for is a book about the Cornish owlman. But the owlman is not a cryptid. It is something else. It is one of these other things, whatever it is, that I coined the term for zooform phenomena about 35 years ago. And I keep on wishing I hadn't, because everybody misuses it and then blames me for it.
Yeah, that sounds about right, doesn't it?
Would you class what's going on with the thylacine right now?
That's a cryptid.
Yeah.
Except it depends on your definition of cryptid. It depends if you count things that did exist that have carried on, even though they're supposedly extinct. If you consider them to be cryptids, then it's a cryptid. Thylacine, there's absolutely no doubt that it exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm quite excited about that, actually.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Again, the Australian government, yes, of course, there's a cover-up. And is the cover-up because they know the secret government, something to do with the Greys and Roswell and stuff? Oh, bollocks, is it? It isn't anything at all. It's because there are very few of them. And they know perfectly well, if they make it public that they are there, some fucker will see it as his duty to go out and shoot one.
Yep.
Yeah. I
was following a guy recently, actually this week. It's been going on over about a month now, and he got some photos. This was an American guy. An American guy, and he's obsessed with thylacines. He's obsessed with it, and he's been trying to track them down and find them and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things and get information and what have you. And he loves them. He genuinely loves them. But he recently got sent a photo by another American who was on holiday there visiting family.
Is the one that was found in the middle of the road?
That's the one. Yeah. Which obviously has now been disclosed as a complete and utter fake.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you could tell that from the photos anyway. But it's good. It's good that, because the thing is, I thought that the first thing you think to yourself is, oh, God, if they've actually discovered one, the world and his wife are going to be out there, and it's just going to it's going to ruin it. It's going to destroy it, you know? So I don't blame, council and government officials for keeping a closed lid on stuff like that, really. Because I think that's the only way that you can protect it. You know?
I'm in a really weird position because my organisation has done 4 or 5 trips to Tasmania now, and they're planning another one in a year or 2.
Amazing.
And I always think, well, shit, if we did catch it, or catch it on camera trap, I don't mean trying to go out and trap it. If we did find it, or find a roadkill one or whatever, what the hell do we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility, isn't it? It's a massive responsibility, and it's a moral question, isn't it? Really, what do you do? Because it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? It's on one hand, it's great. You discovered that there is a breeding population out there. They're still in existence and fantastic. And then on the other hand, you're thinking, well, if those numbers have dropped to a point where, because it's like with a lot of species, isn't it? If they get below a certain number, and the gene pool's not really credible enough to keep them breeding.
Yep.
And even then, if a slight disease or a slight problem comes in, the whole thing folds. So
And
what do you do?
something else that nobody seems to be talking about. There's a lot of stuff at the moment about trying to genetically re-engineer the thylacine. Well, whatever it is, it won't be a thylacine.
Absolutely.
It'll be a really good fake.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
what happens if they repopulate Tasmania with these things? They're going to wipe out the remains of the original.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of, it's a much smaller creature, but I'll give you an example of what happened with this. There was a butterfly in Britain called the large blue, which was declared to be extinct supposed to have been extinct by 1978. Well, one of the last places it lived was a place called Hartland Point, which is about 3 miles away from me. And I know it in 1978 because I saw one the year later, in 1969. But in the early 1980s, English Nature, or whatever it was called then, I don't think it was called English Nature then, introduced hundreds of these from a closely related subspecies in fact, might even have been a closely related race in Scandinavia. And it's now well established in Britain, but it will have outcompeted the remnants of the original population.
Yes.
And they will have become extinct through genetic dilution.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a shame.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's such a delicate balance that even within a case of maybe 10, 15 years, an ecosystem can completely reconfigure itself.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're talking about putting a species that isn't native, but is a lookalike, into an environment that it's not really, that it shouldn't be in.
Yes. The point of having a species in a biotope is for it to do the job that it's meant to do, the job that Mother Nature wants it to do. And if you bring in a closely related one, it may not be doing that job. It may be doing some completely different job.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying that happened with the large blues from Scandinavia. It probably didn't. But who's to know? And I found that very...
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of creatures go extinct as well, isn't there? It's a timeline, and once that's up, that's up. I believe that. And I think that if not, I mean, obviously, human interaction has a lot to answer for speeding these things up in some instances. But I do believe that if an animal has become extinct through natural causes, then there's a reason for that.
Well, also, when people are trying to reintroduce animals that have been genetically redone by reconstituted by using their closest relatives. There is a company in America who is trying to clone a passenger pigeon from using genetic material from museum specimens and their closest relative, which is the mourning dove. The passenger pigeon was doomed it was once upon a time, it was the biggest and most numerous bird in the world. And there are accounts from early American settlers of flocks of these birds flying overhead and blotting out the sun for several hours. They were slow flying, not very clever, and easy to shoot and tasted. The passenger pigeon was doomed once there were less than 1 billion of them left. Because they needed to fly in those enormous flocks to be able to survive. And somebody to it's probably quite possible to clone a passenger pigeon and to clone half a dozen of them. And you have them in an aviary looking like budgerigars, miserable because they can't fly the great distances they're supposed to, and there isn't over 1 billion of them.
No, yeah.
And I think that's just cruel.
It's just cruel, yeah. Absolutely. It is cruel. It is.
I'm finding that there's more and more strange species that are just suddenly appearing. For example, I'm going to boast a little bit here now, so just please forgive me. I did a 15-mile walk on Saturday, and I stopped over on a bridge over a wetland area, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, Jonathan. I'd never seen it in the area before, and I saw a huge bird, a very large wingspan. It was pure white, long-necked, black, dangly legs. The legs looked a bit odd, the way they were hanging. Yeah. It was white. It was not a crane, because I know that they have the grey, distinct grey on there. This was completely white, and it swooped like this, and then it landed in the marshes, and I stood there watching it, could not believe what I was seeing, and thinking, what the bloody hell kind of bird is that? Still don't know what it is. I'm presuming it was...
it's a great white egret.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it was?
Because... Now, there were once upon a time several species of egret living in Britain, and they were wiped out in Elizabethan times because they were hunted for the long feathers that come out of the back of the male's head, which both men and women used to have their hats. And in Victorian times, when they became popular again, by which time they'd been long extinct in Britain, they nearly were hunted to the little egret, which is the one with the best feathers, nearly got hunted to extinction across all of Europe because of this, because of women's hats. But now they are protected across their range, and women don't want feathers in their hats anymore. There are now 3 species of the white egrets living in Britain. 2 of them, all 3 are breeding, but 2 of them are breeding sustainably. And the biggest one, which is what I think you saw, is called the great white egret. And it's a Eastern European species, which is slowly coming back and colonizing Western Europe again. And aren't they magnificent?
Oh, it was beautiful. I was just like standing there watching it with my mouth open. It's like, what? What am I looking at?
Absolutely fantastic creatures.
We're lucky we can, that we've got these birds and these animals and things that are coming back slowly but surely.
Oh, we used to have so much more though, didn't we?
Oh God, yes. So much
more.
We will again. Well, we've got 4 minutes left till the top of the hour. And I think we should let Jonathan have a bit of a rest. But
she's trying to get rid of me, isn't she?
Well, no, we can stay for a bit longer if you want, but we're getting you back.
I'm enjoying myself. I'll stay on as long as you want me.
Oh,
but it's obvious you want me to go.
No, you can stay. We're happy.
Of me, doesn't she?
Eric,
I'll tell you what, I've got a question, Jonathan, if you don't mind answering it.
Of course.
It interests me because when I was a kid growing up, they were the type of people that I used to look up to, and they were the type of people that I always wanted to be. Your father was one of the last explorers, wasn't he?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about your dad? Because those are the type of people. Yeah.
Well, he worked for His Majesty's Overseas Civil Service, and then Her Majesty's. in the late 40s, early 50s, and he was in Nigeria, which again was at the time a British Crown colony, and he and my mother, he had to go and look in the region around Lake Chad, because even then they could see Lake Chad was drying up, and they were trying to find what species of wild rice could be cultivated. And he and my mum started off exploring the area around Lake Chad, and then, for reasons I've never really been able to understand why, they ended up crossing the bottom bit of the Sahara, the right at the bottom end of the Sahara. And as far as I know, my mother's still the only European woman ever to have done that.
Wow.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's impressive.
But Richard's an explorer. Richard Freeman, who apparently the fangirl over there wants on the show. Because...
That'd be you, Viv.
Yeah. He's all right, he is.
It's all right.
No, he's
Not
not.
It's
Weird. I used to live with him. I know. I was filming interviews with him all afternoon. Richard's been to places that no other Europeans ever been to, or at least no other British person's ever been to. He went to a valley in Sumatra that even the local people, hardly any of them had ever been there. And he was the first European to go into a cave system in Thailand looking for giant snakes. And he's done stuff like that. They're all over the world.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
You must be quite a tough person to be able to go into a cave to look for giant snakes, or you don't know what's going to jump out at you. You must be pretty tough to do something like that in the first place, or even want to go and do that.
It's exciting, though, isn't it?
No, Christ, yes. I mean, I haven't done that. And Richard's much more intrepid than me.
Either that or he's stupid. One or the other.
And intrepid and stupid. But no, I love Richard dearly. He's a sweet, dear, sweet boy. But he's far more intrepid than me. Anyway, these days I'm in a wheelchair, so I can't anyway. But yes, it is exciting and life affirming to do shit like this.
Yeah. And you've been to a few places though yourself, though, Jonathan. So
yeah, nowhere near as exciting as Richard, but yeah, I've done a few things.
Well, I find what you've done is exciting.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
You guys are too kind, especially Vivian.
It's true. It's true.
Love
though,
you.
isn't it?
Love you, John.
And I love you too, darling. I do that as well. If I've got to hold, because I'm in bed and I'm holding my iPad up with my hand, so I can't sort of.
That counts. That counts.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've just had an operation on my hand, so I can't really move it very well. But no, I mean, I wouldn't do anything else, because basically this is the only thing I know how to do.
But you do it well.
Yeah, well, it's very kind of you to say. I'm too old and too fat to be a rock singer anymore, so I might as well do this, because there's nothing else I'm any good at.
But you've got this organisation that you started and you run this country's biggest organisation, with all of this all encompassing.
The Anglosphere's biggest, the English-speaking world's biggest cryptozoological organisation, young Missy, not just this country.
Oh, okay. But it's all encompassing, even with the I'm going to say the word Fortean side as well. So it's like all of it. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. Jonathan, do you still do or are they still going the weird weekends?
No. The last one was 8 years ago
Oh, that's a shame.
because my wife first of all, my mother-in-law, who I loved very much and lived with us, she had dementia, and it was really freaking her out, having all these people traipsing in and out the house. She didn't know who they were.
Yeah.
And then my wife got cancer, and that's a lot. And I basically mostly retired for about 8 years because I was looking after them. Because I was a nurse 1 years ago, and so I knew how to do it. So I was looking after both of them, and then I took a few years off because my wife had just died, and I needed to get over it myself. And then that little sod Daniel Barnett came along and dragged me out.
Dragged you out of retirement.
He dragged me out of semi-retirement, and now I'm back doing stuff more than ever. But
that's good.
Now, there is something called Weird Weekend North, which is run by a mate of mine, which is in April in a village, I can't remember its name, in Cheshire, each April. And for various reasons, it looks quite probable that I'm going to be moving from my house here back to Exeter. I don't want to because I love this house, but it's old. It's falling apart and I can't afford the mortgage properly anymore. And so I will probably be moving back to Exeter. And when I move back to Exeter and I'm in the same town as Richard Freeman and Gwyn Palmer, who is my assistant, we're talking about restarting the Weird Weekends again.
And it'll be a party round your house in Exeter.
It always was. Always.
I just can't wait. I look forward to what you do, Jonathan. And right, all jokes aside, though, if I
joking, I never joke.
If I want to know something, or I want to know something on a serious level, I know that I could come to you and get the answers that I'm seeking. So there are people out there.
So you just see me as a human version of Wikipedia. Oh, Vivian, I'm so disappointed.
We look up to you and we learn from you, and I think that's the biggest thing, is the learning and the understanding, or trying to understand. We might not get it completely straight away, but we do try. And there's lots of people out there that do look for people like you, Jonathan. So if there is anybody in the chat or they want to get a hold of you, what's the best way that they could do it? Don't come and see me because I'm not giving his details out, but could they email you? Could they email you? Or
he'll grab me on Facebook.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do.
I hate Facebook, but it's the most convenient way to contact anybody.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a necessary evil, isn't it, unfortunately?
Yeah.
Or if you have any cryptid sightings or big cat sightings or anything weird and wonderful, let Jonathan know, because I'm sure that you'd be interested to hear about these things.
Or if you have a slutty aunt in her mid-60s.
I'm sure somebody does out there somewhere.
One lives in hope.
She's got to like dogs, Archibald. She's got to like Archibald, otherwise
got to like animals. No point in... No, you don't want somebody who doesn't like animals. They're not even worth looking at.
Archie's in bed now. He's curled up in the crook of my knee, and he's snoring through one end and farting through the other.
That's a dog that's contented.
That's contented, yeah, exactly.
Sweet little boy, I love him dearly. So, ask me more questions, unless you just want to get rid of me.
Mark Warbank says he love Jonathan's research work.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it, Mark?
That's really sweet of you, Mark. Thank you.
Has anybody
I'm
got any
always
questions?
amazed when anybody actually recognises me or knows what I do, because a lot of the time it feels like I'm sort of just shouting in a barrel somewhere.
Oh no, I know exactly who you are. I've
Bryce
been
says,
following you for years.
the bittern is back too, and we have a breeding colony. I can't say that word.
Colony.
Here in the first time in years, and he Bryce in Yorkshire.
And also, even more so than that, Brian, there's actually a bird called the little bittern. Oh, no, pussycat. There's a bird called the little bittern, which, from what I can gather, it wasn't living in Britain since before the last ice age. Now that's back as well. It bred in Britain for the first time 2016, I think. 2016, 2017.
That's very cool. That's good.
I think that's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Oh, Mark, that's very kind. Thank you.
There you go.
Same as a Yeti, but talks more. What?
Yeah.
I think he's talking. Isn't he talking to Nettie?
I think he's talking about Nettie, his other half.
Yeah.
Well, there's no point, Mark. Mark says he loves the humour and the honest approach.
Yeah.
But if you can't laugh at this shit, there's no point in doing it. The world is fundamentally absurd.
Yeah.
And we are the closest to World War III than we've been any time since I was 4 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you can't laugh at this, for Christ's sake, what can you do?
Yeah. Exactly.
In Scotland, Rabsy Nesbitt, as I call him, he has the golden eagle.
Oh, the golden eagle.
Now,
He wants to give it back.
Yeah.
Oh, shut up, Dan. Now I've completely lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
The golden eagle.
It's all your fault, Dan.
Terrible interviewing skills or lack of skills.
I was going to say you've also got the white-tailed sea eagle, which is another extirpated from Britain animal, which was started, I believe, in the late 1940s, early 1950s. Again, the British race of the white-tailed sea eagle was the last one was shot in 1913. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but the last specimen was an albino.
Oh.
Because I don't know if that signifies anything. I don't know if it signifies a lesser gene pool or whatever. But they were then reintroduced in the late 40s, early 50s, again from Scandinavia. And they're now being reintroduced to England as a breeding species. They're breeding on the Isle of Wight now, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you, Jonathan. Oh, Brian's got a question there. They're in North Yorks too, along with the red kite. There you go.
I love being able to see kites again because kites were a bird in Hong Kong. They were the it was called a shite-hawk because that's where the term comes from, because they used to hang around the sewers eating rats. And it was the commonest bird of prey in Hong Kong. And I love the silhouette of that forked tail against the sun. And to see those back in England again now, it's, oh golly, it blows me away. It's one of those things I find totally wonderful.
And the way they mate as well. They do it in flight, don't they? They do this thing.
She's just bringing the tone of the conversation down.
I know, it's Phil.
She's trying to make a serious cryptozoological discussion, something about raptor porn.
It's just an amazing thing to watch when you see them actually doing it. It's like, what are they doing?
She's now a raptor voyeur. I think.
Oh,
I
dear,
believe there are communities for people like you on the internet. Yeah.
She runs them.
yeah. I can sort out your naughty auntie for you. Not a problem.
Oh, good. Okay, I forgive you everything, dear.
I've got a question for you, and I was more or less laughed at, which is not surprising. I'm normally laughed at. So I was in Buckinghamshire the other day, and I was told you couldn't have seen them. They've not come back this far yet. But I swear I saw in Buckinghamshire, in the woodlands there, a red squirrel. Do you know if there's any information regarding red squirrels out there? That part? Or?
As far as I know, the only mainland red squirrels in England are a remnant population which Spooky Viv is hunting out for me in Thetford Forest in Norfolk.
Right.
They were there until about 17 years ago. I still don't know if they are. Because the only other ones in England, there are 3 islands off the coast of Dorset that've got them. I believe they're on the Isle of Wight. And they are in parts of Wales, especially Anglesey and parts of Scotland. But there is a bronze-coloured colour morph of the grey squirrel.
Yes, yeah, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't that. It definitely wasn't that. It looked. I mean, it was fleetingly, but it was quick enough. It was long enough to try and acknowledge what it was. I mean, I might be wrong.
Shape and colour.
Sorry?
Because I tell you what is making a comeback is pine martins, and they have the same sort of colour.
Yeah. It wasn't a pine martin. Definitely wasn't a pine martin. And
over
I
there,
thought
we got pine here, we got red squirrels here. You can have all of ours.
We've got all your bloody grey ones, thanks.
Yeah, and the black ones.
Bringing their pops over here. Oversexed.
Excuse me, Vivian. You're not supposed to use that terminology. You're supposed to call them squirrels of colour.
Squirrels of
colour, yeah. Ethnic squirrels.
Well, we have black squirrels up here. I've seen a couple.
Squirrels of colour.
Black squirrels' lives matter too, you know.
Black squirrels' lives matter.
Exactly.
What about the black rabbits as well? Because I swear they're people's pets that have just got out and
not necessarily.
Because I'm seeing white rabbits and black ones.
Okay, I've got a real weird story about black rabbits.
Go on then.
Let's hear it.
There is only one place in Britain, in the British Isles, and in fact, depending on your geographical definition, you might not even count this as part of the British Isles, where the dominant colour of rabbits is black. And that's on Alderney in the Channel Islands. And as some people say it's part of the British Isles, and some people say it's not, it's geographically part of France. I don't know. But Alderney is where the tin trading boats from Phoenicia, which is now Syria and Lebanon, used to come to make land first before trading with the Cornish tin miners. Now, there have been stories, because the tin miners in Cornwall have and they don't really exist anymore, but had a completely different culture, even to the rest of Cornwall, certainly to the rest of England, They had their own laws. They had their own parliament called the Stannary Parliament, that I think met in Truro. And they had their own complex series of folk beliefs, one of which was that rabbits were sacred. And there have been stories for years, which I've never been able to back up, that there are small, dark rabbits seen in and around the old tin mines on Bodmin Moor. Now, my theory, which is not really even a theory, it's a lot of guesswork and a bit of hang on.
We can still hear you.
I don't know. Yeah, so for some reason, my screen went blank. My theory is because the race of rabbits that's in Syria are small and dark, I think they came along as a portable supply of protein in the Phoenician trading ships from Phoenicia, and that's why they've ended up on Alderney, and that's why they have ended up in the tin mines on Bodmin Moor, and I believe that that's how the genes for small and dark got into the British rabbit gene pool. But I've never been able to prove that. That's just one idea of mine that I've had for years and years and years, and been wanting to set up a project to prove and not been able to get around to it.
If I see more, should I take photos and send them to you?
Yes, please.
Because they sit there quite happily amongst the grey rabbits, these black ones.
And although I don't believe there are any tin mines outside the West Country, if you come across any stories of, I don't know, tin trading or whether there's a tin smelting works or something, I don't know. I'm just making this crap up. But if there's something that we can get a connection between the Cornish tin traders, Cornish tin miners, the Cornish tin traders, the Phoenician tin traders, and the other parts of the country where these things have been seen, it would make me a very happy man.
Okay.
But then
and that's
again,
for everyone in the chat as well.
Yeah, most people don't care. They just think, oh, black rabbit.
No, a rabbit of colour.
Yeah, ethnic rabbit, yeah.
Well done, young lady.
Oh dear!
I know a lot of those old tin miners went to America, didn't they? To carry on mining out there. They set up. What's the town they set up? What's the big mining town in America? The gold mining town.
I don't know.
Virginia.
The massive one. No,
Virginia City.
It's a city, but I can't think what it's called. They set it up. It was those that they went out there to cultivate it. It was the Cornish, which is why a lot of the descendants there have still got Cornish names like Trevelyan and stuff like that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's amazing because a lot of them shipped themselves out. So some of them went to South America, some of them went to Africa and different anywhere there was mining after the, outside of the tin mining, they went there. What was the place called? I think Ghost Adventures did a massive ghost hunt there.
Tombstone?
No, it was it caught fire at one point, burnt down, then they rebuilt something city.
Virginia City.
No. It'll come to me at some point. But yeah, it's a big city. It was built on the foundations of the Cornish tin miners and their families that moved from Cornwall straight across there. Can't think what it's called now.
Surprise! I didn't know that. It doesn't surprise me because back 20 years ago, I was in southern Illinois, and I was there looking for chasing up the local beliefs in black panthers, which, considering that pumas are were at the time supposed to be extinct there, and pumas, although there have been stories of black pumas, they are very, very few and far between. I think there's only 3, and none of them have been properly authenticated. So I was really interested in why there were all these stories of black pumas, and also I was seeing this chick. So I was in America anyway, and we were in southern Illinois. I was chasing up interviews with these people with some of the eyewitnesses in and around the Shawnee National Forest. Which, if any of you been there?
No.
Absolutely fantastic. Can you imagine those sort of forests, those really thick woodland that you get on the south side of Dartmoor, except over hundreds of miles? It's absolutely wonderful. And we pulled into a gas station, and I went in there. And the woman from the cop there said, "Hello, me aunts. You been from around here, be you, me lover?" And I found myself talking back in Devonshire. I don't speak the Devonshire most of the time, but when someone talks to me in Devonshire dialect, I was brought up in Devonshire, and I'm surrounded by people who talk Devonshire, and it's like when my housekeeper's here, we talk broad Devon to each other. And without thinking, I was talking to her in broad Devon, and I realised, shit, I'm in southern Illinois. Why is there somebody talking? And I've never been able. I've tried this on lots of times, but I've not been able to prove it. But again, I bet you anything you'd like that the first Europeans to settle there were from Bideford or South Molton or somewhere, because she was even using, and she said like she was talking about daffodils. She said, Lenten lilies are lovely this year, ain't they?
Yeah.
And, you don't talk about Lent lilies outside Devon for what daffodils are.
No. There's one on the there's one on the coast out there as well in America, somewhere around the middle of nowhere in the coast, and they're a Cornish colony, and they were talking to one of the guys there, and he said, "Is you going to go out today? Oh, you take that boat out there? No." It's like, but they've been there for generations, and they still spoke with a broad Cornish accent. It's amazing. Which is one of the things about zoological things, isn't it? It's amazing how you follow this zoological map, and you follow these different routes and these different lines that go off of it in search of different animals, but it ties itself up with anthropology in the end as well.
Oh, it does. Everything's connected to everything else.
All connected.
Yeah.
Which is intriguing.
I find
it measure.
Totally and utterly enthralling.
Yeah.
But then I get obsessed and interested with things that most people find completely dull.
Same as me.
Whereas I have absolutely no idea who won the last series of Pop Idol and don't care.
No. Exactly.
Listen, everyone, Jonathan is going to be at this next conference at the UK BRT, which is in Purple Spoons Cafe in... Where's that place called?
In Bristol.
Highbridge.
Highbridge, that's it. Highbridge.
Yeah, I told you she's trying to get rid of me.
I'm trying to tout business for you. Get your fans in. Yeah, £10 a signature. No, I'm only joking.
If you bring your slutty aunts with you, I won't tell you what I'm signing.
But no, he's going to be there. So if you are in the area or you haven't got your tickets, why not get them? You're going to miss a very, very good day, and you'll be able to meet Jonathan in the flesh and ask him any question you like. I'm sure he may answer, or he may not. But that's
or I may just talk complete bollocks again, just like I had.
I love it. I love it. But that's on the 25th of July, I believe. Yes. Dan's going to be there. I will be there.
Yes, I am definitely going to be there.
And Jamie will be coming as well. Well, he says he is.
En route. We'll drag him out. We'll drag him there.
But yeah, so it's going to be a fantastic time. Jonathan, are you okay to come back on our show? Because I feel that we've got more to talk about. There's so much that we. Please say yes.
Pretty please.
Pretty please with sugar on top.
And a cherry.
Yes, of course I will, you silly girl.
Because we've got so much we want to ask you. We haven't got enough time. We could go on for days, honestly. It'd be a marathon. And
I'm sure you're welcome. Also, I want you on my show so I can take the piss.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. All day long. All day long.
You can always watch my show. Remember, I do dress as a chicken for part of it.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, I don't think so. I'm in touch with my inner chicken, you know.
Inner chicken, nothing wrong with that.
Exactly, because these days you can self-identify as whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a duck on Thursdays.
You two are terrible.
And you're as big a twat as I am.
We'll have to share that award, the twat award, then.
Yeah, I think so. I love this. You're coming on my show. You're coming on my show, Daniel. Just to talk.
Just to talk bollocks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right, guys, we're going to end the show here now.
I told you she was trying to
Yes, I've got to. We can talk in the chat afterwards.
Tell them about my show, which you're trying to
do it.
Trying to change the subject from.
So you dress as a chicken.
Yes.
When do you go live?
I have a show which goes out on Wednesday afternoons at 3 and Saturday evenings at 6:30. I don't always dress as a chicken, but I am sometimes dressed as a chicken. It's called On the Track, and it's a mixture of hard science, weird shit, and surreality. And
fantastic.
Backing about, so.
That's brilliant. And can they sort of
go
back and watch? So they can go back and watch and okay, that's good.
There's 280 episodes at the moment. So.
And what is it called? I'll just type it in here quickly.
It's called On the Track. You look at it, CFZ On the Track on you.
Fox. CFZ on the.
She just wants to see me dressed as a chicken.
I'll put it on here. So if people are watching this on playback or anything, they can see.
Perfect.
A track. There we go. Excellent. Right, we are going to be back, Eric, Dan, and myself, and hopefully with Lois and Jay, and you never know, Mark might make appearance.
Maybe Mark, hopefully.
Yes, on Tuesday on the Things Network. Other than that, join us here on next Wednesday. We are going to be joined by the delightful Anna Goodrich from the West Yorkshire Ghost Paranormal team. Ghost Hunters. So it's going to be another good show, and hopefully the week after or in a couple of weeks we might get Jonathan back. You never know. Great. See what happens.
Brilliant.
Jonathan, thank you very much.
You are always welcome, my dear. I've enjoyed it massively. Eric, I feel awful because bloody Dan's hogged the thing. I'm
terrible. I'm terrible. The boy never gets a word in edgeways when I'm on.
Well, Eric, that's the reason my beard is so, because I'm in bed and it's all big and lumpy. Because Eric's the one person I've ever met who actually ties his beard up. Apart from me, I tie my beard up. And it's just I don't when I'm in bed, which is why it's up.
That's fine.
That's good. Both of you must be part pirate then. I think it's a pirate thing, isn't it? Tie your beard up.
Touching your nose in the middle of the night, and you feel like.
And I think maybe we are part pirate, just the way we are.
On that note, I'm going to say good night, everybody, and we will catch you soon. Take care.